When an executive dropped my entire background file on the board table and laughed at my high salary in front of 12 corporate directors, I kept my hands pressed flat against the polished oak to hide the tremor in my fingers. He claimed my risk analyst position was an overpaid luxury that produced zero tangible value, treating my warnings like fairy tales designed to justify a paycheck. I had dedicated 7 years to Apex Global Capital, obsessively dissecting corporate contracts to shield the firm from financial devastation while balancing late nights alongside my husband, Brandon, and our 2 children. This newly appointed chief operating officer, Vance Caldwell, was eager to prove his worth by slashing overhead, completely dismissing my detailed audit on a pending merger that exposed massive hidden liabilities. When Vance mocked my credentials and demanded to know what catastrophic event I had ever actually prevented, I stood my ground and cited specific clauses in the pending acquisition paperwork for Sector Prime. I explained that their revenue accounting methods disguised temporary fees as recurring income, creating an operational loophole that would expose our firm to a staggering $2 billion legal liability the second the deal finalized. The room grew dead silent for a brief second before Vance erupted into condescending laughter, treating my detailed mathematical proof as pure paranoia and paranoia alone. He convinced the financial board that our external legal partners had cleared the deal, officially placing me on 2 weeks of forced leave while declaring that the billion-dollar acquisition would close the following morning at 8 sharp. Walking back to my office, I knew my career at Apex was effectively over, but I refused to let Vance turn me into a convenient scapegoat when his reckless decision inevitably blew up. My manager, Brenda, slipped into my office looking visibly shaken, admitting that Vance had been targeting my position since his first week, viewing high-earner analytical roles as easy targets for his artificial budget cuts. I spent the next 2 hours drafting an airtight, unemotional summary detailing the exact structural flaws, complete with dollar exposure metrics, risk calculations, and specific recommendations to halt the closing for 72 hours. I emailed the comprehensive file to our chief financial officer, the corporate legal counsel, and Vance himself, receiving a dismissive 2-sentence reply from Vance stating that the closing would proceed as planned. That evening, I forwarded every time-stamped email, risk analysis report, and internal warning memo from the past 2 months directly to my personal server, securing 14 critical documents that proved I had repeatedly raised the red flag. When Brandon asked how the board meeting went, I admitted I was placed on mandatory leave, staying up until dawn obsessively rechecking my calculations to ensure my findings were absolute. By 8:15 the following morning, the corporate internal memo confirmed Sector Prime had officially been acquired, signaling that the invisible fuse on a massive corporate bomb had been lit. Knowing Vance planned to manufacture a reason to terminate me for cause during my forced leave, I decided to take absolute control of my own narrative before he could distort the facts. On my second day away from the office, I called Brenda and officially tendered my immediate resignation, refusing to sit quietly while an arrogant executive prepared my professional execution. Brenda begged me to stay on paid leave to protect my salary, but I insisted that an unblemished paper trail proving I foresaw a multi-billion-dollar collapse was worth far more than 2 weeks of pay. Immediately after submitting my formal resignation letter, I retained a top-tier corporate employment attorney named Diana Vance, who reviewed my forwarded paper trail with sharp professional focus. Diana confirmed that resigning prior to the collapse protected me from being framed for negligence, noting that Apex would soon be forced to pay exorbitant consulting rates to secure my expertise once the disaster unfolded. Over the next week, I enjoyed uninterrupted family time with Brandon and the kids, finally attending school events while quietly completing phone interviews with rival investment firms seeking experienced compliance directors. Recruiters were eager to pitch my background, offering lucrative compensation packages that validated my true market value while Vance continued his aggressive internal cost-cutting drive back at Apex. On the 15th morning following the transaction, my phone rang before breakfast, with Brenda frantically revealing that Sector Prime had just delivered a massive legal shockwave to executive leadership. Their internal financial reconciliation revealed hundreds of millions in artificial revenue streams, prompting Sector Prime attorneys to file a formal $2.1 billion lawsuit alleging Apex sabotaged their post-merger operations. Panicked emails from the chief financial officer, corporate legal counsel, and Vance immediately flooded my personal inbox, desperately requesting emergency consultations to help construct a legal defense against the massive claim. I forwarded every single communication to Diana, who negotiated a strict consulting contract requiring Apex to pay $15,000 daily while providing complete legal indemnification and full written acknowledgement of my original warnings. Returning to the Apex corporate headquarters 3 weeks after being humiliated, I entered a tense conference room filled with shell-shocked executives, outside trial attorneys, and a visibly humbled Vance Caldwell. For 3 hours, I laid out the precise timeline of my audits, presenting every time-stamped email that proved I explicitly warned Vance about the contract flaws 18 hours before he authorized the deal. When the outside legal counsel pressed Vance to explain why he disregarded my explicit documentation, he was forced to admit under oath that he conducted no further legal inquiries and dismissed my warnings as mere theoretical noise. My exhaustive analysis allowed our legal team to prove Sector Prime committed pre-acquisition accounting fraud, forcing Sector Prime to abandon their $2 billion lawsuit and accept a restructured agreement without additional payouts. Following the massive legal victory, the firm announced Vance Caldwell had resigned to pursue other interests, while senior leadership offered me a promotion to Vice President of Global Risk Oversight with $1 million package. I respectfully declined their offer, choosing instead to join an elite risk advisory firm as a senior partner, knowing I would never again let an arrogant executive diminish my professional worth.